This
That would
conference
be,
will now be recorded.
here
Yeah,
we go.
I'm gonna text Larry again. I've been trying to text him. I'll keep texting him.
Okay. So we technically have quorum. So we are going to get started, everyone. I'm Caitlin Shake, the councilwoman here in Stratford for District 2 and chair of the Longbrook Park Commission. It is 7:16. We are going to officially call the meeting to order. We have quorum. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of the March 3rd, 2021 minutes. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
I move to accept the minute.
Okay, I see Martha raised her hand first. Is there a second?
Second, Roger.
Roger Sauls for second. Very good. All right. Thank you very much. We are going to move on to the next item, which is our Parks and Rec Superintendent report. We have Mr. Esposito with us this evening to give a direct report. I just wanted to first say thank you so much. I did a walkthrough with Mr. Esposito about a week ago, and we just identified different places in the park that needed maintenance work, essentially. And I took a walkthrough this morning, and I'm sure you're going to talk about those different areas that you and your team were able to get out there and fix, and it looks beautiful. So I just want to say thank you. So go ahead, Mr. Esposito.
Good evening, everybody. Chad Esposito, Park Superintendent for the town of Stratford. Like Councilman Shake was talking about, we walked through it on 3/22 on March 22nd. It's almost 2 weeks ago. Time flies by so fast. So on that night, the evening crew went through the park. There was reports of trash thrown everywhere, debris everywhere, largely apart from the 50 to 52 mile an hour windstorm that we had shortly before that. So the evening crew went through the whole park, up, down, cleaned up as much as the garbage that they could meet, that they could reach, get paper pokers on, whatever the case was. They cleaned up as valiant as they could. But there was also reports of flooding across the sidewalk and over the walls of the upper pond. So when that area at the dam is all congested with silt and buildup, everything gets choked down to that point where it doesn't drain. So they were able to, and subsequently, almost, I would say about every 3 to 4 days between Highway Division and Parks Division, we have been diligently trying to keep that grate clean. So you notice now, as of today, there was probably about, I didn't measure it, but I would say probably 4 to 6 inches of the wall showing. So the water level was significantly lower than what it was at the top level when that dam is not functioning properly. So we've been trying to keep up with it. Highway's been keeping up with it. So between the two divisions, we've been getting there, I would say probably every 2 to 3 days to make sure that it's not absorbing a bunch of stuff and getting choked up. With that being said, there was a sinkhole that was reported on the end of, I don't know which road it was, but like Elk Terrace in that area. So the sinkhole was found, there was a cone in it. We put some rock in it. We tried to put some topsoil. It looked like the water was breaching a concrete wall there. So we filled it, we're monitoring it. If there is a breach in the concrete wall where the water is going to, we're gonna have to fix or patch the concrete wall so the sinkhole doesn't happen again. So we're on top of that. We're about 4 or 5. The parks crew did the same thing. They went through the whole upper lower pond area, tried to get as much trash, garbage, anything strewed along the sides. On that date, they cleaned the sediment leading to the pond because the water level was very high. Now the water is lower, so they were able to move the sucker trees that were growing up. I'd say 90% of them when I was there this morning. There were still 2 of them that might have been in water when they were there. As the water starts to go down lower, we'll get those last 2 sucker trees that are growing up and try and keep the area as clean and as mowed as possible. It's all weeds and it's all grass and it's Phragmites, so we'll try and keep the area clean as possible. There was a report of a grocery carriage in the pond today. So the guys went up today and removed the grocery carriage. That's been done. As you all know, or in that area, the sports activity is increasing daily. with high school sports starting April 10th, and out of like town people, sports teams that are renting like Pender's Complex, the soccer leagues, baseball is going to be starting. Basically, I mean, Pender's between high school and all these sports, it's going to be used 5 to 7 days a week with sports. So we're on top of that. The Parks Division works all of those games to make sure everybody's right, the right permit holders there, there's no abuse to the field, all of that stuff. The area of Laughlin Road East, the Parks Division, when we had a complaint about that over the wintertime or last fall, I can't remember, of the neighbors trying to go through that walk-through path. You know, Parks Division was there 3/22, they were there on 4/5. They're trying to go every other week through that walkthrough because, believe it or not, like the residents say, there is a ton of garbage that accumulates there with kids just hanging around. I'm not going to put a garbage can there because that will just attract, either we have to go there and clean the garbage or I'd have to go there and clean the can. So either way, we're going to have to go to the area, and hopefully, you know, as these kids get older, that it doesn't become a hangout spot or an area collection for garbage. That's it for the park side. I mean, I could talk about the PW side, or if you want to go to a different, you know, aspect, you could tell me. Or if there's any questions, I could field any questions too.
Well, thanks, Mr. Esposito. Thank you for all the updates that you gave regarding, you know, the garbage cleanup, and I think regularly, weekly, bi-weekly, going through like the Laughlin pathway area. I've been getting complaints almost every other day from residents that live directly around the park about activity in the past couple weeks. And there's only so much we could do until we have better, you know, enforcements around the actual park. So I think there was vandalism that when we did our walkthrough, that your team was able to get off by the, I call it the giant steps, that area. And then if there was anything in the lower brook, in the actual Longbrook pond area where there's the stone bridge, not the side facing the pond where it becomes like the tributary or the river pathway, whatever that's called. There's vandalism on that side. So I don't know if today when your team was out there, because when I saw them down by the field house, I had asked them to grab that shopping cart, but they were the plumbers, so they said they'll pass it along. So I'm glad they're able to get it. But I just wanted to know if the team had actually seen new vandalism that's now on the opposite side of the bridge there.
We didn't see anything that wasn't talked about. So I'll go document it. And actually the people that handle the graffiti and that type of vandalism is building maintenance. So I'll take pictures and send it over to Danny Wakeling at building maintenance, and his guys will either pressure wash it or paint it, or however they alleviate, you know, the graffiti, depending on how it is.
Great. And then was there any update regarding at the top of the giant steps when we had done the walkthrough, where it's that fenced in area, and it's like the left side, it's just been kind of pried back, and there's kids in there. Is there any update for repairing that so that it's actually enclosed and people can't get inside?
I had passed it on to M&M, our fence contractor. So I don't know if he was waiting for parts or how he was going to fix it. I'll go and take a look tomorrow and touch base with him and see if it has been done or what his timeline is to get it done. And I could pass that along to the commission. That's not a problem.
Okay, great. And then before I ask any other questions, is there anyone else from the commission that would like to ask Mr. Esposito any questions regarding his report for the park, just specifically maintenance, before we get into DPW? Roger, Martha?
No.
Anyone from the public? Janet, did you have a question regarding cleanup? No? Okay. Sure, we can transition now and move into the DPW, Department of Public Works, update that Mr. Esposito is going to share with us. So go ahead, thank you.
So Chad Esposito, Park Superintendent again for Town of Stratford. So I received 2 reports, both from Conservation Division and both from Highway Division. The Conservation Division Kelly reported that the tree removals within 25 feet of the Brewster Upper Pond Dam are being planned for in the near future. We subsequently have been working on that as when she wrote this report. So we were just kind of following up on her dam inspection and that whole area when it was inspected. The second thing that she had to report is the illicit sanitary connection to the stormwater system that feeds Brewster Pond is being rectified. A PO has been issued for the work and permits are being prepared. So they're working on it. She's got a plan. She didn't give me timelines for it or anything like that, but I'm sure if we reach out to her as the POs and the permits get done, she'll have a timeline for construction or for the work that needs to be done. So that's the conservation start. Then on the highway part, when Ms. Shake and I walked around, we saw some broken areas of sidewalks that had been broken from either tree or plow damage or combination or whatever the case was. So the highway division was out today. They did the lower Y sidewalk closest to Hurd Avenue on the Elliott grass side of the park. So that was done. And then they were working on the sidewalk that we had walked on the just up from the garage where another tree had fell and cracked the asphalt too. So they were working in those 2 areas. I know the lower sidewalk had got done and the upper sidewalk they were working on. I don't know if they had poured concrete and fixed that one to entirety, but it is being worked on. We did get a report this morning or from from Tom Gelati, who had passed along concerns about the dam showing water. That lower section, when we were watching how much water is falling off of the pond now, we think, I'm not an engineer, but we think that the water coming off the pond between high wind and as it hits the rock, it's kind of splashing back up to the wall side. And I only say that because Kelly did do a whole structural, she did a whole report through an engineering company that checked the whole wall, and the whole wall structurally was sound. So I think if she had that company there and it was showing weeping or water coming through the wall, it probably would have been a big concern of theirs. But again, that wasn't part of the report, that everything passed, that the wall was safe and structural and didn't need immediate work or to secure it. So that's just what we had observed today. And that's what we're gonna do,
Okay, I mean, this is Caitlin Shake, the councilwoman for District 2. If it warrants, another walkthrough, if there's been a change of status, then I'm sure Kelly will and Mr. Casey will get back out there again to double check the site, and we can request that. Was there an update regarding the mason work around Brewster Pond that we could talk about?
Sorry, that was part of highway. So the cap area of the actual pond, any of the little capped or small rocks or stuff that were on the cap are just routine falling off because the pond does get salt from the street and the water has a salinity content to it. So concrete doesn't really like salt. That was one section. There are 2 visible sections of about 10 or 15 feet where the wall is actually falling down or collapsed that need to be addressed by the masons. So what, in combination between highway and parks, are trying to lower that pond water and keep the grade clean so that the water level does stay low, and if the rain kind of subsides and we can keep that, or if he can keep that, then the mason will be able to work on that wall to restructure it and reform it so that, keeping the water level low, he could do that. So the highway was saying they were going to monitor the water, keep the water as low as possible. And if they could keep it low enough for a stretch, then they could build those forms to fix those 2 areas that are gone. That's what their plan is.
Is there a timeline for that?
I could send a note over to Tommy and ask him, but when I asked him, what he was doing, and he said they're monitoring it daily to try and figure out when they can get it formed and when the water level is going to be low enough.
If you would be able to request from them a timeline, just so we have an idea, you know, number one, it doesn't look very nice. It just doesn't. It's crumbling infrastructure around a very heavy, high trafficked walking area. And we also have a lot of families coming and they're fishing or they're picnicking. And, you know, in my opinion, I think that's something addressed sooner rather than later. So we can figure and budget season. So if that's something that needs to be addressed, now is the time that we need to figure that out. The Dr. Esposito? No? Okay. If you could stay, normally, Mr. Esposito, you do stay on, but I just want you to stay on as we move on into the public safety report from Mr. Ciccarelli, if that's okay, because it'll probably involve your feedback also.
Yeah.
So next we're going to
I'll say
have our public
you
safety
break it up.
director, Mr. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Next, we're going to move on and have our public safety report and update from Mr. Ciccarelli. There's a couple newer issues that have come up in the past 24 hours. So I'm just going to let Mr. Ciccarelli talk to us first, and then we can ask follow-up questions.
Well,
Thank
good
you.
evening, everyone. Appreciate the time. Larry Ciccarelli, Director of Public Safety for the town of Stratford. As a preamble, everyone should realize that March is probably the last winter month of the year as we move into spring and summer as it relates to public safety, where people are indoors. Movement and play outside is somewhat limited and restricted, not necessarily during the day, but as you get closer to the evening, it gets darker earlier and temperature drops. Now, as April and May approaches, information I provide and data as we move forward may become more, unfortunately, plentiful as more and more people are outside. So March was a relatively quiet month with only actually 5 registered events occurring through dispatch. Most of them were medical related. We did have one of a different nature, which was fireworks we had at the end of the month. We had a big problem that night due to another major activity that occurred in town, which required most of our assets to go to. So unfortunately, weren't able to address that on a normal, timely basis. But that will happen based on the triaging of activities. Public safety, the directive always comes through dispatch, and if need to, by police and then through me, prioritization based on life safety. And there was a life safety issue that night that, unfortunately is happening more and more due to the enclosed nature of people staying at home due to COVID, and that took some precedence over that. So, and it always happens that way. Something happens and something else pops up. It's just the nature of the unfortunate ground that we're operating under. I understood from Councilwoman Shake through the mayor's office that there was some additional activity. I just found that out today. It happened last night. I pulled the tapes on it regarding some cars on the fields at Longbrook. I had a reconnaissance done by PD out there last night and again today. I didn't see any major damage, nor was any vehicles directly identified. So I mean, more to come on that. But I mean, that's as of right now, that's the report. If you have anything more, Ms. Shake, go right ahead.
Thank you for joining us so we could directly just get clarification on a couple of concerns that we have. It seems that a constant concern every month that we have these meetings are that on Prim Street in the back, there is almost every single night there are people gathering and partying, trashing the area, being disruptive late at night, whether it's a weekday, more so on the weekends, just because it's the weekends. But like last night, it's not a weekend, and we had activity here in the park at like 10:30 at night. And yes, it is, the temperature is getting warmer, so people are able to come out and be outside longer. But with that in mind, when school gets out, I'm getting complaints of kids that are at Pender's Field, climbing the dugouts, getting on top of the dugouts, and riding bikes on Pender's Field, which we know is an issue and a concern because it's a multi-million-dollar turf and we want to maintain that area. And then it's been almost every month where we have graffiti concerns. So if you could, we have discussed as a commission, different thoughts or ideas of what is needed. And I actually went door to door this afternoon to the residents on Prim Street just to ask them what their experience has been with the noise, activity, disruption, vandalism that has been taking place. And we do have one of our residents here on the phone. But last night, where the people were in their cars, there were two different cars, and they drove over the grass area, across the field. They came up the hill onto Charlton Street, because I watched it, because my office is where you can see it. It's right here. They turned around, they went back to the dead end parking lot area at the end of Prim, and then they did it again. And yes, the police came in a faster manner than the previous example or issue that you discussed. The fireworks that happened, I think there were firecrackers in the middle of the day. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There were at least 50, 60 people on the field practicing. There were families walking around, and it sounded like gunshots. So we're lucky, in my opinion, that the field or the dugout didn't catch on fire. So I understand, I'm a nurse, I get it with triage, but when I am getting consistent complaints from residents who don't just live here in District 2, but they're driving here to be with their families, about whether it's, the kids that are riding around, or if there's other concerns that are happening, or vandalism, or the excess trash. It's only the beginning of April, so I can't imagine moving forward the level of complaints that we're going to receive unless we have a better plan in place to basically mitigate and prevent, the level of what's happening happen. So if anyone else from the commission would like to have any comments or ask any questions for Mr. Ciccarelli, please go ahead. Okay, then I'm going to open it up to any members of the public. If you have any safety concerns or questions that you would like to ask Mr. Ciccarelli, now is the time to ask.
Yeah, hi, this is Mr. Kane over on 110 Prim Street. In past years, we had signs up that did note that the parks close at dusk. So that those have been either torn down or fallen down. I don't know if that's still a policy in Stratford. That might help. It's interesting because there are some nights where people come and go and there's nothing, just the noise of the cars. And then, like you said, there's other nights where there's a bit of a ruckus starts happening out there. And from my experience so far, anytime I call the non-emergency line, the police definitely come through relatively quickly. I'm always happy to thank them just to kind of clear it out, because there's plenty of nights when, even in the winter, I've got to turn my TV up so that I can hear it over the music being played in the park, which is, just a little out of control. I mean, I get their kids, but I just wonder what kind of, I don't know, rules are in play for the parks, and how do we maybe enforce those differently?
Ms. Shea, can I answer? Is that-
Please, thank you.
Okay, so from a general perspective first, especially if there's congregation of kids or adults or whoever in a certain area that they're not supposed to be, especially if it's late at night, a call to dispatch, even if it seems to be a very disturbing large group, can always go right to 911. If it's a minor incident, to do the regular 385 number. And at least that'll build a pattern up. Some of these things, including grouping on certain roads and that I haven't heard this year, so that's new to me, and it's good that I'm on these calls as well. I think that we will begin, as the weather's getting warmer, to repattern our patrol pattern for that area to make sure that the pattern goes by that area at different times, not at the same time, because people figure that out. So different times each evening to catch something, to be proactive as well, not just reactive where people are getting a call. And then to look at limiters on that in that park and see if some of those signs should go back up there. What I am concerned much about is vandalism, kids on dugouts, destruction of property, destruction of things that taxpayers have paid money on, and that the kids use for athletic events. That's unfortunately not fair, and I hate to see the kids go to a game and not be able to play because something's damaged. And then from that, those congregation of those kids, drinking, doing a lot of noise, that ends up to becoming a bigger issue. So, if things happen or there's a pattern and you see it, no one has to wait for a monthly meeting to talk to me. If you want to talk to me first, I can initiate some things, talk to the police chief and get some things going. If you want to talk to dispatch, please do that. But I work every day. I'm available anytime to call me, and we'll move this forward. Try to make it a park for everyone to have fun accessibility to.
Mr. Ciccarelli, has there been any discussion regarding surveillance, better surveillance, or surveillance that actually works in the park to actually catch who is coming into the park and vandalizing the area, or harming the area or causing harm in the area?
Well, there has been, to answer your question, it's a little bit of a longer answer. From a town-wide perspective, there's been a push moving forward to upgrade cameras, and particularly at night, it's difficult with our current cameras to pick up video with only using the ambient light that's available to us. I can tell you that Longbrook Park has not been identified right now, but if that's something that and it appears it may be an issue, Ms. Shake, you're welcome to send me an email, and you can actually send it through your own town council for appropriations. And if we have the funding, which we don't have right now, we'll be happy to put that up. I have a team of people that are internally very professional in our forensic side of our PD, as well as outside vendors that have some really good designs and quality cameras that can operate through the cloud, and they're very effective. Technology has changed a lot in the last 5-6 years with cameras.
Thank you for that suggestion, Mr. Ciccarelli. And then as in-person mitigation, to your point, it would be, I think, of benefit and just to actually have a better safety presence here in the park if we could increase the patrol of the police when they come through, because
Mhm.
as you said, but I feel like I'm speaking into the wind here, because it's been a constant ask, and the response before has been that we don't have enough patrol personnel to come out, or whatever the excuse is. But at this point, other than appropriating funding so that we actually have working surveillance, because we should anyways, where it's retrievable by public safety or our police department, God forbid. Like, for example, thank God there wasn't a fire in the dugout that day, with all those people there that could have also been harmed. But also, with the potential of having construction very soon, right, for these $750,000 worth of tennis courts, but we have constant vandalism and disruption along Prim Street. We have to figure out another way. So to Mr. Kane's point, yes, we need signs. It's not that expensive to put signs up that say that the park is closed at dusk. And from my interaction this afternoon with residents here, it was the residents who took it upon themselves. There used to be a chain that they would link up to close off that parking area, So it should not be at the responsibility of the residents to figure this out when we have public safety and we have an active and well-trained police force to mitigate and figure out how to do this. So I'm happy that you're here so we can all have this conversation together and figure out a plan before it gets warmer and we know that the volume of people and traffic in the park is going to be increased. I mean, at this point, do we fine people? What do they do at Short Beach? They close the gates, right, when it's like 8 o'clock or when the sun sets.
Right.
And you could be subjected to some type of a fine. I mean, if that's the route that we have to go so that things are not damaged, I don't want to see anybody be disciplined in a way that's not appropriate. But if at this point, because I want to be clear, it's not just children or teenagers that are here abusing the park, it's adults. We need to set that precedent before things are worse than, the cars that were coming across the park last night, they looked like they were literally coming up towards my house. I mean, I don't know any other town off the top of my head that has had that particular type of problem. What if it was the turf field? We would be having a giant town meeting right now, because that's a multi-million-dollar space, but it's just grass for right now. And thankfully, nobody was walking their dog because my neighbors are out. People are coming home from work, working second shift. Nobody was hit by a car. So we appreciate you as the director to take this, and Mr. Perillo, Councilman Perillo, who also serves on the Public Safety Committee, to figure this out. So hopefully my hope is at the next meeting that we have in May, we have a plan in place. If we have to put up signs, we'll put up signs. If we have to figure out, you have to, Mr. Esposito, you guys work together. The only reason why the cars did not come through where the actual parking lot is, they went like 30 feet before, is because it's just grass and we don't have those large boulders there. That's why they didn't drive in the other area. They were able to get through. We need to be able to come up with solutions so that nobody gets hurt, because we know as it gets warmer, we're going to have full fireworks being shot off in the park, because that's a constant complaint. And I don't want any of the residents, whether they're here on Prim Street or they're up Charlton or they're on Laughlin, to feel like this is not a safe place. So I look forward to hearing what the solutions are, and I think appropriating funds are one step in the right direction, but we actually need to have the presence. When we have sporting events here, the cops are here. They're hanging out. Great, good. but when it's a warm day, like right now, I'm looking out into the parking lot. There's like 3 cars out there just doing whatever. So
There's a few going on my side of the park.
that's what I mean, Mr. As I'm looking out my window, Mr. Cade, at the end of Prim Street. Yeah. So if anyone else has anything that they'd like to share or add. No? Okay. So hopefully next month we'll have an update and a plan. And if it's before then and you want to email the commission, because we've made a couple suggestions, we need signs, we need to have more police presence. That would be great. And then we can communicate that with the public.
Will do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to be moving up to the next item on the agenda, and I'm going to make this quick. We have our annual spring cleanup on May 1st for Longbrook Park. We are starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's tentative until 12 o'clock at noon, but hopefully between 8 and 10. That's going to be the bulk of when we have the cleanup happening. Roger said that he would volunteer to bring the coffee this time, which is great. I have heard from a couple of our Stratford High sports teams that are hoping to come and volunteer with us, which is great. And then we have our families who are also available. So similar to what we had in the fall, you know, the week before or 2 weeks before, if anyone from the commission would like to do a walkthrough, we can pick a date with Mr. Esposito to identify the areas which are more of the heavy lifting, so that, you know, we're not putting anybody potentially, I don't want anybody to hurt themselves in trying to clean up the park. There's a lot of leaf cleanup all over the park that could happen. There's a lot of down limbs, so we'll communicate with Mr. Esposito and have designated areas, whether it's Marcus Drive or, you know, Charlton or Hurd Street, where we can pull the bags of leaves or limbs or garbage, so we can have Public Works pick that up for us. That would be great. And in the fall, we had gift cards that we gave out to all the kids that came to Open Door Tea. That's where they came from. This time I was thinking maybe, because now it's warm out, the ice cream shops, everybody was closed. It was kind of sad. So if we're able to get like 20 gift cards so the kids can get a snow cone or an ice cream cone or something after with their parents, it's walkable. Paradise ice cream, or they could go down to Main Street to support our small businesses. So we could do that.
I believe, didn't Paradise Ice Cream close?
No, they're open.
Okay.
Yep, they're reopened.
Oh, they are. Good. Okay. I know that they had closed down last year. And
They did. They like so many of our small businesses, they closed their doors early. But then, you know, it's also seasonal. So they opened up, I think, a few weeks ago. So
Okay,
I'm happy to go stop by and get, you know, 10 gift certificates from there, and then 10 from downtown Goody Bassett. And, you know, whoever wants to bring water, Carol and Jim, if you want to bring cleaning products, meaning like hand sanitizer, we can do that. And then everyone has been asked to bring their own garden tools again and their own garden gloves. We'll have disposable gloves, and we will also have the big giant industrial trash bags. So we have leftovers, and I have leftover garden tools from last time. And I don't know, I'm sure everyone on here has been going for walks through Longbrook, but all the daffodils, those 300 bulbs that we planted in the fall, they're all starting to bloom, which is happy, you know, it's beautiful. I got a few compliments from people walking by today when I went on a garbage pickup. That was my walkthrough, because the activity last night. So does anyone else have any questions or thoughts for the first? No? Okay. All right. So we will meet at 8 o'clock, Marcus. Can you hear me? On
Yeah.
Marcus, and then we'll figure it out. There is the same day, there is the Housatonic River cleanup that was announced about a week ago, that they are holding their annual cleanup on the same day, same time. Not a problem. People can walk and chew gum at the same time, so they can come and be with us for 2 hours, fuel up, and then head over to Housatonic River. So we can do it all. All right.
If anybody's interested in bringing something to eat, like donuts or something, that wouldn't be objectionable, at least from my perspective. Probably talk Larry into a donut or two.
Okay.
Bagel, Roger, bagel. I'm trying
Oh,
to stay
okay.
healthy.
Bagels.
Bagel.
If
All right, we could
bagels
do-
work for me too.
We could do bagels. All right, guys. Our next meeting, oh, it's not on here. I believe it's going, Carol, can you tell us the date of the next meeting?
It's going to be the 4th, I believe, May 4th.
She can't unmute herself. Okay, that's okay. So our next meeting is May 5th.
Yeah.
And we will,
I'm
it's a
sorry.
Wednesday. Longbrook Park meets every first Wednesday of
June 5th.
every month. I'm sorry. Nope. Our
May
next
5th.
meeting is
You're
May.
right.
It's May 5th. So we'll have updates from our Parks Superintendent, our Department of Public Safety, and DPW regarding all the issues that we talked about today. Thank you to everyone for taking the time to come out and being patient with the tech issues. Martha, you have a question?
That is Cinco de Mayo. I'm just putting that out there. So it's not really May 5th, it's Cinco de Mayo. So
Well, we'll have
margaritas here?
well, sure.
Whatever works.
Tacos, margaritas. Yeah.
Before we move, sorry, I have we're gonna wrap this up so we can be respectful of people's time. Does anyone else have any issues under new business or old business that they'd like to bring up from the public commission? All right, seeing none, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move for adjournment.
Thank you,
I'll-
Roger, for a second.
Mhm.
Martha, second. All right, time is 7:59. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time. And Mr. Wright, if you could stop recording, we are all set. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Everybody stay safe during the
Yeah.
month.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Folks,